Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to the February X3 Consultant Roundtable. Thank you for joining us today. We're really glad to have you on the Roundtable. I'm Clark Haskins. I'm with the North America Center of Excellence. We have a packed agenda for you today, but before we get to that, I wanted to thank you for the great feedback and topic suggestions we received from the survey. Yay, the survey worked. And from those sent by email. This information really helps us plan out our future sessions, so thank you. As always, through the roundtable on your GoToMeeting dashboard, there's a question section. Please feel free to enter question and comments during our session, and we'll either respond during the session or by email afterwards. So our agenda for today. First up, we have Jason King will discuss analytics beyond the basics. Scott Whitney will provide an overview of quality assurance management in X3. Following that, we'll discuss what's new in Sage University. And today we're very excited to have special guests Simon and Lydia to provide an introduction of the Central Center of Excellence. And then lastly, we'll discuss upcoming events. First up, we have Jason on analytics beyond the basics.
Yeah, thanks, Clark. Hi, everyone. So recently I was reviewing the education offerings offered by the Central Center of Excellence, and I wanted to spotlight the Analytics Beyond the Basics course in this short segment here. Next slide, Clark. If you search the knowledge base on analytical dimensions, you're going to come across hundreds of KBs, and many of these deal with the same themes, such as mandatory dimension errors and default dimensions missing. I'm sure we've all been in the position trying to pinpoint the cause of these errors. So this course outlines the functionalities concerning analytical dimensions from the project scoping through the implementation and process. In the course, you'll start with a new company and go through the various options, including mandatory dimensions, ledger settings, and default dimensions. You can see on the right side of the slide, the subject matter covered takes a deep dive into the implementation and decision-making that goes into each task. It also covers the process-related functions and available reporting options. So there you can see things like all the various setups, the functionality for later distributions, the dimension groups and pyramids and reporting that's around those things. Next slide, Clark. So here I just wanted to focus in on one of the subjects in the course is mandatory dimensions. There's a lot of errors in the KBs around this subject. There's a lot of other course content available, but I just have a short presentation for today, so this is the one I picked. So here, when you're setting up mandatory dimensions, you can make this setting on the analytical dimensions. So this is tied to the ledger, and the ledger then tied to the company. And you can make a choice here to make the dimension mandatory or not. So you may come across this requirement when a customer requires a certain dimension to be mandatory. This may be to facilitate the management reporting. Sometimes those mandatory dimensions cross not only income statement, but also into the balance sheet as well. So that further complicates the setup. With the setting turned on, you can prevent users from leaving the dimension values blank in the transaction, no matter what the transaction flow is. So this requires a mindful setup of the accounts and the dimensions by default. It also requires a lot more testing to avoid any errors. And you want to get a handle on this early on in the project so that you can conduct all those tests rather than towards the end. Activating after go live can be complicated. So if you activate in the middle of the year, when you try to close the year, you may come across an error in the closing. And in that case, it's looking for all the journals to be populated with the dimension value that's mandatory. It's recommended to add the dimension or activate them as mandatory at the beginning of a fiscal year, if you're doing this, or at the beginning of the project. Next slide, Clark. Yeah, just go back one. Yeah, so this slide just introduces the steps to make it mandatory. I'm sure you're all pretty aware here. You would flag the dimension as mandatory at the company level when setting up the company. You associate the dimensions to the appropriate GL accounts. And then based on those accounts where the dimensions are associated, you now have an idea what transaction flows will be involved. So from this, you can make or create a matrix for the default dimensions. There is a document in the scoping materials typically. You can see this in the X3 Start materials that are offered with that program. And it includes a list of all the default dimensions. So that's the matrix that it's talking about here. So from that, you can associate default values to the company or to the site. And this could be helpful where you have a value for the transaction does not flow from another object like customer, supplier, or product like it would normally do. Next slide, Clark. So I just gave you like a preview of that default dimensions matrix that it's talking about there. I added this into this presentation for today. In this slide, so this is included in the scoping documents, like I mentioned. And I added the expected account column in the middle of that grid there. Down the rows, you have all the dimensions which are hard-coded to the transactions in X3. So this is from the default dimension setup. It's quite involved. And across the columns, you have the dimensions that are used for the company, for the folder. And this is further explained in the course itself. So if we end up removing a dimension type from the transaction entry, but we don't default it using these default dimensions, we can get an error. So here, what I've tried to do is indicate across the column which analytical dimensions are mandatory. So in my example, I'm just making the site analytical dimension mandatory. So this is a site for this example. And I'm saying that that's mandatory for this particular example. So from my list of accounts, then I know what accounts have the site dimension associated to them. And then I need to also know if it's on the income statement or the balance sheet. So if it's just on the income statement, I may be able to populate the default dimension for the line rather than the header. Okay. But if it is on the balance sheet, then I'll need to populate it on the header. A lot of these rules in the default dimensions have a rule for the header of the transaction and for the line. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about there. So in the blue highlighted cells, I'm mapping out the transaction and how it should get its dimension value. So for the customer invoice transaction, we have a header and we have lines. And in there, I'm trying to determine how it's going to get the site analytical dimension. Okay, so I'm saying for the customer invoice header, it's getting it from the site that is on that transaction, essentially there. And then at the line, it's getting it from the document header. So that's what I'm saying there. And I have an idea of what accounts are being associated with the transaction there. So I know which ones I need to default the values for. So this grid, I don't know that it's often filled out, but that's one of the purposes you could use it for. Next slide, Clark. So just one or two more points here on the mandatory dimensions. You have dimension values, or dimension types, I should say, that you populate on the entry transactions throughout all the different entry transactions in X3. And it performs a test here on the transaction when it's mandatory. Okay, so I'll talk about the last column first. So here, so yeah, in the last column, we have two different scenarios. The first is where the dimension type is present on the screen of the transaction, but the results, but this results in an unnecessary test. Okay, the user is unaware and they can proceed with the transaction. So this is where the dimension type is not on the GL account, and it is on the entry transaction. Okay, and the next scenario that happens with that is the dimension type is not on the screen for the transaction, and this test is avoided and the user can continue on with the transaction. So the middle slide, or the middle column, I should say, deals with a lot of errors, I think, in the KBs, the support KBs, especially where you see the red. So this is where you have a mandatory dimension on the GL account. And in the first scenario, the dimension type is present on the screen, and this results in a test during the transaction entry. If the value is not populated, the user gets an error that it's mandatory, and then they can fill it in. In the next scenario, you get an error. So this is where the second scenario generates a potential error on posting. This happens when the dimension is not on the transaction screen and it's not defaulted from the default dimensions that I covered or mentioned earlier. So that's a big purpose of going through the default dimensions to ensure that the value gets populated for not only the mandatory ones, but all of the other ones as well. So in my experience, implementing the default or the mandatory dimension can be difficult because of the amount of testing that needs to go in. And really the testing is through all the transactions. Next slide, Clark. So I won't go into detail here. The last thing I wanted to just mention is the later distributions. This is covered in the course itself as well. And this would allow you to, sometimes you have a value, a dimension value that you're really not defaulting, you're just putting it to like a not applicable code or some dimension code that is really not where you want it to reside at the end of the month. So this function allows you to reallocate based on different settings, and it's covered in the course as well. So yeah, this concludes my spotlight on mandatory dimensions within the within this course. And you can see or go to SageU for more details on expert training. So this one's a really exciting one, I think, for everyone out there that deals with dimensions. There's a lot of different things covered there. Thanks, Clark.
Thanks, Jason. So this is this a course that we're planning on providing? Is it on the calendar?
I don't believe it's on the calendar at this point, but yeah, you can stay tuned for more on that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, Scott Whitney's going to provide an overview on quality assurance management in X3.
Great, thanks, Clark. Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for the topic on analytics. Always enjoy listening to you speak on topics you're passionate about. So everyone, my name is Scott Whitney. I am a principal consultant with the North American Center of Excellence team. I have been with Sage coming up on 5 years now and have worked exclusively with the X3 platform as an operations functional consultant. We are always looking for feedback from you and your peers that will enable us to provide you with better tools and information. So I'm really happy to be here with you guys today. As Jason just mentioned with the analytics review, we're also looking for those functional areas that may need more review or instruction to meet your objectives. One of these areas that tends to get overlooked is the quality management process, inclusive of the non-conformance features within X3. Based on our limited time today, we won't be doing a deep dive, but I would like to give you an overview of what has been delivered in the past, some of the current features, and then hopefully hear from you on your continued interest on this topic. Next slide, please, Clark. So a good quality management system includes the essential parts of what we talk about: quality assurance, backed by quality control management and non-conformance management. The total impact for not maintaining these areas is business reputation, cost, efficiency, and effectiveness. And as the industry continues to grow, quality is a key aspect ensuring customer success and perceived value. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the business challenges and benefits that a good quality assurance management process can see. Challenges like non-compliance to industry and regulatory standards, lack of traceability between control and supply chain, visibility, poor quality visibility, difficulty to manage. And then the benefits that we see are prevention and containment of poor quality, increased customer satisfaction with quality products, better QC control and supplier management, and better visibility to costs and data. Next slide. Quality control functionality that we may already use within X3 could include these areas where we're managing Q status stock. So managing between base stock status inventory through either stock changes or location transfers and storage requirements. Product sampling on incoming receipts could be done with proper setup and control for acceptable quality limits and acceptance levels. And then the quality control manual or module with or without the analysis requests and technical sheets that can be placed for products on incoming receipts or work order receipts. Next slide. So we look at non-conformance. We're utilizing more of a continuous improvement process where we can represent the use of non-conformance functionality within X3 for areas like creation. So you could create non-conformance for products or non-products or services. And these can also be triggered from source documents that we have, such as customer returns, purchase receipts, external order receipts, production tracking, time tracking, and even within quality control. And then different status managements help us control and communicate progress. When we move into action plans, those action plans can be preventive or corrective and be created with or without source documents. The benefits here would include work in progress, management of priority, and deadline monitoring. We move into reporting. A lot of the benefits here, reporting to stakeholders, both internal and external, is absolutely key in assisting your continuous improvement plan. This will contribute to building that trust and transparency for action plans, customer supplier issues, or deviation requests. Next slide.
Scott, before I jump to the next
Yeah.
slide, you used a term that I often forget. What did you mean by source documents?
Source documents, like what we talked earlier, is any of the standard actions and transactions within X3. So if we apply a customer return and we want to create a non-conformance based on the requirement that maybe we fell short on, whether it's quality, defect, or quantity areas, service delivery, or purchase receipts. When you're doing when we're bringing in vendor compliance, so you could use and create non-conformance from a purchase receipt.
Right, and that would reference that specific receipt number, supplier information to the non-conformance.
Well, absolutely. When you're using source documents, a lot of that information or most information is pulled into the non-conformance automatically. And a lot of that's what we'll cover in the training, in the workshop.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so non-conformance roles and processes. This is the who's who. Most of the, if not all the parameters are default and user-based roles will be defined in the parameters and in training. The use of basic or full mode non-conformance will be reviewed and assigned. And as you can see here, user role operations will be discussed and trained for all base functions within non-conformance. So you can see as we have the swim lanes here for creators. Anybody that has access to this in X3 can create the non-conformance. It can move to the QA manager then, who can review and assign and approve, move to approvers that are set for optional if needed, planners, and then actioners. So we have a decent set of process map for this, and we'll go to the next slide, where we'll talk a little bit about setups. So all this will be reviewed in the workshop as well. So you can see setup. Now, non-conformance is activity code based, so it can be turned on or off. User-based and general parameters will be reviewed and set for setup. We do have local menus and miscellaneous tables that are critical and key to the outcome of your non-conformance reporting and actioning. And then we'll work through document creation and user processes and tasks. So what you see on the right here is just the process and action plans, more of a vertical view of the process map we just viewed. So have a lot of information to share. It is very valuable. And like I said earlier, it does tend to get overlooked because some folks look at this as a complex setup. But if it's done right and it's used properly, this can be a very valuable tool for you, your customers, and their downstream end users. Next slide. So we wanted to wrap up. We wanted to thank you for your time reviewing this topic with us. And we wanted to present you with a quick poll to gauge your interest in a future workshop. Right now, this course is not on the SageU calendar, but we are looking to develop that and get it out to you as quickly as possible. So if you could, take a few minutes and answer our poll.
So our poll's been launched. We're getting question or responses come in. Thank you very much for
Awesome.
your feedback.
Great, thank you, Clark, for opening up the poll.
And thank you, Scott, great session. It's such a deep quality management, such a detailed topic. It's really important that we can present the solutions within X3 so that the customers can incorporate that into their quality system.
Absolutely. And you covered it earlier. I mean, we talked a little bit about preventive and containment, which is critical in dealing with quality. So really appreciate everybody's time on and attentiveness here. And Clark, I'll turn it back to you in the studio, sir.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Just a few more seconds on the poll before it's closed. Get your responses in. And thank you. Great response. Just going to close out the poll now. Give you 5 more seconds. No wrong answers.
Clark, you probably see that too. There are a couple questions in there from the financial side. I'm sure we'll wrap up at either the end or post meetings.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to close out the poll. Thank you very much for your responses. Next up on our agenda is what's new. And so I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag a little bit. The North America Center of Excellence team is working on a consultant hub, a consultant partner hub, and it's going to be a great resource for information for our partners from the North America Center of Excellence team. I don't have anything to show you just yet because it's kind of a secret just between us. So stay tuned for more details. Next up, Sage University. So we've got a list on the screen of some Knowledge Bite sessions. Just as a reminder, Knowledge Bite sessions are 1-hour sessions providing an overview or information on specific topics. Upcoming on Tuesday comes to the new preventive maintenance module for Sage X3. We've got formulas, queries, pricing setups. In March the 20th, there's a session on the new custom report pack and inquiries, as well as a session on fixed assets. This is a list of the expert classes in the financial area for February and March. We've got the distribution and manufacturing expert classes with the addition of procession. This is the first time Sage University's had an ISV do a session. So Wednesday, February 22nd for sessions presenting quality control. This is a great opportunity to see quality control in this type of session, not specifically on a customer implementation. I'm attending this course and hope to see others there. And the other expert workshops listed here, I've taken them and they're really outstanding, really, really good information, really worth the time. And here's our list of technical, developmental, and workflow workshops in the month ahead. So there's lots offering, lots available to you, and the expert workshops provide that deeper dive, really good information in the, for the coursework, lots of takeaways, lots of hands-on, so highly worth the time. Okay, so next up we have an introduction to the Central Center of Excellence. Simon will be
Yeah, I'm here.
and Simon, I'm going to make you as a presenter.
Oh, this is where it all go horribly wrong now. Yeah.
Correct, right. This is where we set you up and say, please use our North American tools.
Can you now see my screen?
I've got your screen.
Which hopefully it shows a slide with Centre of Excellence on it.
It does that too.
Is that the right one?
It is.
Yeah, yes, oh good. That's a good start.
Even has your name, Simon.
Yeah. That's a good start. At least it's working. Right. Hello, everybody. I'm Simon Rashbrook from the Central Centre of Excellence. You may have noticed I've got an English accent, so you're going to have a change from the Americans to the English. And then to really throw you, Lydia Tello is also joining me, and she's Spanish. So we're going to mix it up with the accents in this session. We've been invited just to give you an introduction to the Central Centre of Excellence, what we do, what we're about, and talk about one of our initiatives that we've got going on at the moment. Just to tell you about why we're here and why we exist. Yes, right. So yeah, what I'm going to talk through is what our mission statement is and what our role is in Sage. A quick introduction to the team. And then we want to talk a bit about our latest initiative, which is a mentoring program. We won't bore you too much, but we want to give you an introduction and give you an example of what we've been doing with the mentoring program. And part of this session is to introduce ourselves, but also understand what we can do for you, the partners. You know, how can we help you as a central Centre of Excellence? Obviously, you've got the US Centre of Excellence. We sit behind them. We develop a lot of those expert sessions you saw there. We developed, we created them, we present them. And we want to know what kind of things people want from us. What new sessions do they want? What new things can we do to make it better for partners? So you can read there what it says, but the central team is a team of highly skilled consultants with a vast knowledge of Sage X3 functionality and deployments. Lydia and I have both been working with X3 for about 12 years. There are consultants in the team who've been working with X3 and its predecessors for 20 odd years. They've got a lot of experience in the team. But we help partners and we help customers with complex and unusual business requirements. And ultimately, we're providing partners with a competitive advantage. So we're helping them to get the best from X3, the best they can do with the tools they've got available. So what are we involved in? We're involved in mentoring. We do a lot of technical work. So we work with customers on technical requirements where they've got large scale systems that they need, you know, our experienced technical consultants to come in and help them, or complicated development requirements where they may need someone to help them. We do a lot of work with soft skills. We don't just do technical solutions, we also do soft skills. So we will train people on consultancy, on pre-sales. We have courses on a variety of areas like that. You may have all seen, and you may come to the new features highlight. That is our baby. We hold the new features highlights. So when new releases of X3 come out, we're the first people to see it, and we then introduce it to the partner channel all around the world through our new features highlights. We do a lot of work with integrations. People want to integrate to multiple solutions. We are people who help with those integrations, particularly when they're more complicated with APIs, GraphQL, whatever it might be. We have consultants who have a lot of experience of doing it. As I mentioned earlier, we are heavily involved in the expert sessions. We are the ones that write the expert sessions, and we are the ones that usually present the expert sessions. And again, anything you can tell us where you want new sessions, you know, is the functionality out there that you want to be able to see that we're not doing at the moment that will help you. We're creating new courses at the moment on SEI with forecasting with MRP, because that's the kind of thing people are looking for. We're creating new courses on picking, you know, wave picking and advanced picking, using X3 to be able to do more advanced picking than you can do as standard. And with those, we're bringing in things like entry points. So we are talking a level above what you'd get from Sage U training. Functionality, obviously, we're involved with functionality. We get involved in a lot of conversations about functionality and how we do it, and how people do advanced functionality in X3. Pre-sales, we do get involved in pre-sales. We'll help people prepare demonstrations, and in some cases, we will do the demonstrations for them. And we also do expert enablement. So we will enable people to do things like audits on their systems. So there's a vast array of knowledge available to you from this central team. And this is the team. I'm not going to introduce everybody because I've only got 20 minutes and I know me. This is the central team. They are based, you'll notice it's primarily France because that's where it started, but it's starting to grow out now. So we've got people in Canada, in the USA, in Spain, in Germany, and people in the UK. So we're a quite diverse team around the world, but crossing everything. We've got a large technical knowledge in there, a very experienced technical knowledge, and a large functional knowledge in there. People who have done this for years and know the software backwards. Now I'm going to talk a bit about the mentoring program and what we've developed, this new mentoring program for partners. So why did we develop a mentoring program? We found a problem in the marketplace where partners, people would go through the Sage U, they get their certification, but then there was a kind of delay. They needed help then to get to the next level, understanding how to really use the software, how to implement it, how to scope it, how to build it. So we built this mentoring program to allow us to develop the staff within our partners, to take them faster through that curve, that learning curve they've got to go through. And what we developed is a program that's fully structured. It's got defined goals and success criteria built into it, but it's flexible. It allows us to do it in a variety of different ways for different requirements. And I'll talk about them in a second, the different what type of mentoring programs we can do. But it's tailored. It's designed around the needs of the individual consultant. This is not a generic mentoring program that we just turn up and say, yes, this is what you're going to do. We look at the needs of the individual and we design a mentoring program around them. And we have done a number of these mentoring programs already for partners where they've needed specific training things or specific needs adapted for a particular user. And Lydia, in a minute, will talk about one example of where we've done this. And why did we have this? Why did we think we needed this program? This came from our managers and our directors. We want to promote excellence in the partner community, and we want to be closer than ever to the partner community. We want to build relationships with partners and with the partner community to understand what they need and what we can give them. and or obviously to accelerate or enhance the consultant journey. We want better consultants out there who are chargeable faster and can do quality work faster. So what are the benefits? We just talked about this. We can accelerate the ability and chargeability of new consultants. We know that when people first come into the organization, they pass their certification, they've done 3 hours of sitting through multi-choice questions, and they know how X3 works. But we also know they don't really know how X3 works. It's when you start doing those projects that you really learn how X3 works. And we try to accelerate that curve by pushing that knowledge faster into people. One thing that we've found, and this has happened at least 2 of the mentoring programs we've done, is that people haven't got time. They have got their senior consultants, which are their most chargeable, their most important consultants. They don't want them spending all their time mentoring someone. They want them out there doing work. We can release those consultants from mentoring to focus on the chargeable work or the problem customers, whatever it might be. We'll look after the mentoring. We provide tips and tricks. It's not just a load of training. It's our consultants talking one-to-one with the people, understanding what they need and showing them the tips we've done. The mentors will all be people who have done loads of projects before. They're not people who are fresh into X3. They will have years of experience of doing projects. One thing we've been looking at recently and has come out is that we can increase the knowledge of experienced consultants. We may have consultants out there who've been doing it for years, but have never done, for example, PJM, have never done web scheduling. But they just need a bit of mentoring on that little piece of software. There may be their first project they're putting PJM in, or their first project they're putting web scheduling in. They just want some mentoring as they go through that, so we can help them on their project and take them through that project, holding their hands as they work through it with people who've done it before. And this is an interesting one because people get frustrated about us because of this. They obviously get direct access to the central team and Sage. So when you're being mentored, you have a one-to-one relationship with a mentor who is part of the central team. So they will be there with you all the way, talking to you all the way. And Lydia will talk about it when she talks about her part. And another thing we can do is live project assistance. So it's not just a training thing, it's not just a chat thing. They may be doing a project at the same time, and we can help them at the stages through that project. So we have a path this follows. We find out what people want with a questionnaire. We then match the mentor and the mentee together based on the skills requirements. We have an initial interview to discuss what they actually need. And the key part of this is we build this thing called a mentorship action plan. It's a plan for where we want to get to, which has our goals in it, and all our documentation around the goals goes into this mentorship action plan, which then, as we go through the plan, actually follows through. So we update it to say, are we making our goals? Are we not making our goals? Do we need to change something? Have we missed something here? And then we follow through various review steps before we get to a closing session, and then we have a monitoring session at the end. But at the end, it never finishes. They're still, the mentor and the mentee still have a relationship, and it will be ongoing. They will talk to each other. So we have a path we follow, which is very structured. It's a structured path, but it's flexible. We can adapt it to different mentoring requirements. So you may have different profiles in here. We may have an experienced consultant on another product, years of consultancy experience on SAP or Microsoft or whatever, NetSuite, whatever it might be, but they don't know X3. So we need to mentor them on X3. They may be not very knowledgeable X3. They may have been working for a customer or a support team, but don't know how to consult. So they need to be taught how to consult. We need to give them scoping skills, pre-scale skills, presentation skills. Different types of skills we need to teach people, a different mentoring profile. They may be a new consultant completely, never done X3, never been a consultant before, who need the whole program. They may be an experienced consultant in another domain. They may be finance coming into distribution or distribution going into manufacturing, who need some transfer knowledge. And again, I talked about it just before, but it may be also specific functionality where instead of doing the standard training and maybe an expert session, we can convert that into a mentoring session where we actually take someone through and we can help them step by step through their first project with, I'll take PJM as an example. Never done PJM before, but want to know how to do it. We can help them on those steps through it. And now I'm going to pass over to Lydia. So you listen to a Spanish accent for a change as opposed to a strange English one.
Am
Lydia,
I supposed to be on the rocket?
yeah, you just flown out.
That's good. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. So yeah, I have just a few minutes to speak, but I want to present you the experience that I've been and we've been, because Simon has also been involved in this mentoring program. So this is one of the examples. We are managing several mentoring programs already, so we have them ongoing now. And this one is with Philippe, which is a person that belongs to a partner in Europe. He started last year around June-ish, and he was before he had no experience on X3, neither on X3 nor in any other ERP. He was just he was a user because he was working for a financial department, as you can see here. He had a manager position, but then he wanted to change his career and jumped into the consultancy world, which it was a real challenge for him. At that point in the partner that he started working, all the people, the senior people, were really fully booked on other projects. So they requested our assistance on that mentoring program. And then is when everything began. Honestly, he had been through some sessions in State University, but it was not until he started doing projects and then making his exchanges with us, when he started to, everything then come together, all the pieces make sense. So Simon, if you can move to the next slide, please. So initially, that partner mentoring was supposed to be based on analytics, one of the topics that Jason presented before, and also in cost accounting. That was initially, but as Simon said, and this mentoring program was really it was really key because it shows that it's flexible, as Simon mentioned before, and it's adaptable to any circumstance. So in that case, he had to take over some projects from other colleagues, and he had, out of the blue, 3 or 4 projects that he had to manage. So we had to open our support, our scope for support, and we were supporting him not only on analytics and cost accounting, but other senior topics or advanced topics in X3. So like I can say, so PJM, WIP accounting, fixed assets, and so on and so forth. So we started having a weekly basis meeting, and he was bringing to those meetings all the issues, questions that he had on his projects. At the same time, I was also trying to mentor him a little bit on methodology, applying some tools and assets from Stream, and also giving him some best practices and advices from my experience in projects. So Simon, if you can move to the next one, please.
Does it move?
Oh, sorry. No. Sorry. Maybe you can stay still. So then, yeah. Or it moved. Yeah, it's here. Sorry. So then, moving forward, what we found is one of his customers requested an audit on multi-currency. It's not that they requested, but they had lots of issues on the way that they were managing. They were not able to extract balances for customers and suppliers in currency, and they said, okay, we need to do something. So this partner requested assistance to us, part of the mentoring, as part of the mentoring. And then we suggested to do an audit. An audit process is something that our team does. So we jumped there into that context, and we initially did a multi-currency management session, an expert session that is already in Sage University, and I delivered that in front of the customer. And Philippe was assisting me, attending to that training. And after that, we did together the audit report. With the outcomes and conclusions, we were able then to fix all the issues that the customer had. And the customer after that said thank you to the partner, and they said that they could then close the fiscal year 2022 with the right currency balances. So this is a really good example that this program is flexible, because we were not expecting to perform that audit, and then it became part of this mentoring program. And then finally, still not moving. Yeah, now, thank you. So these are some words from Philippe. You will be able to read when Clark and Scott and Jason will send you the slides afterwards. But basically here, just to let you know, this mentoring program is still ongoing. However, now Philippe has become one of the lead consultants at this partner, precisely in finance. So he's really proud and happy with that. He still needs our assistance, of course, and we are still with him. So, for example, next week I have another meeting, not every week now. And also, just to finish, the last thing we did with them, with this partner, is support on a pre-sales demo. So they had a really important pre-sales demo for a customer. They need to win the wheel, or they wanted to win the wheel of the deal, sorry, which it makes sense. So they perform a dry run in front of myself and Bruno, one of our colleagues as well, our manager. And we gave them some advices, some tips and tricks on how to demo, on how to perform pre-sales in a way that you could win that deal. So this is the last thing we did. And as far as we know, last Friday, they sent us an email that the demo was a success. We don't know yet if they are going to win, but at least we collaborate in something that was successful. So that's all about my case, and I hope that this had illustrated a little bit more the mentoring program that Simon introduced before.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, so I think you picked up on that. You know, what I talked about and what Lydia's talked about is the flexibility of this mentoring. And I think the key thing with this was how fast we got this person from someone who'd literally just done the certification through to someone who's now a lead consultant or a principal consultant, doing his own projects now, much faster than it would have normally happened. So I will, it's okay, the British and the Spanish will be quiet very soon. So how can we help you? We'd like to get to a point where we, if possible, we can have one-to-one meetings with you and discuss what things you'd like us to do for you. What services do you need? What expert sessions? Are there things out there that you're not seeing at the moment in terms of the expert sessions that Clark showed you at the beginning? Are there other things you want us to be able to prepare in there? We can do expert sessions as one-to-one or as you know, we can do expert sessions as one-to-one as opposed to the scheduled ones. So there's a lot of things we can do. So I'll say thank you. We will send these slides out. I'm sure we can arrange it with Clark. We can send the slides out. Please feel free to email Lydia or myself. Follow us on LinkedIn, and you'll see the type of things we are doing as part of the central team. And on that, Clark, I will be quiet. I think we went a bit over our 20 minutes, but only slightly.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you,
Quite
Lydia.
good. That's quite good for me and Lydia, to be honest, to keep it that short.
I was going to say that, but
You know us then.
I do, yes. Yes. I'm just going to take back presentation rights. Perfect. Thank you very much. So upcoming, our next consultant roundtable is on Friday, March the 17th. Remember, the consultant roundtable occurs the third Friday of each month. Invitations are sent out via channel communications, or I send out emails as well. When you are registering, if you see the screenshot to the right bottom portion of the screen, you're actually able to register out for future sessions and get those invites on your calendar so you have the dates reserved. Every meeting we receive a last minute email or message saying, hey, I forgot to register, get me in, please, let me in. The capabilities there to pre-register for future sessions. There's that little drop down, it's really hard to see, but there's that little drop down on the point of registration, and that gives, by clicking that arrow down, it brings you the drop down and you can register right out until the September sessions. Additional sessions will be added for future registration, but they're all there for you. So again, thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you for participation, your questions, your survey response, your poll response. We really appreciate it. We'll be sending out an email with that will cover the slides from today, both from our team and from the from Simon and Lydia. And again, we welcome your feedback. We give you, rather than rushing a close, we give you a few extra minutes today. So thanks again, and we look forward to talking with you next March the 17th. Thanks, everyone.